Let's go ahead and get started. So today we have the opportunity to welcome Emily and Dennis. They are both on the data infrastructure team at Drizly. They're going to be talking about how to effectively deploy a remote data team. So Emily and Dennis, please take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily. I am on the analytics team at Drizly, the data infrastructure lead. And I'll let Dennis introduce himself.
I'm Dennis. I'm a data engineer at Drizly, and so working with Emily to deploy all the infrastructure for the analytics team.
Awesome. Got our slides up. All right, we just went through this, so I'll jump in. All right, so today we're going to go through a little Drizly overview, talk about the data stack that we wanted to build as an analytics team. We're going to talk through our phases of implementation and a little bit about what we're thinking for the future of Drizly Analytics. So for those who maybe haven't heard of Drizly before, we are the world's largest alcohol marketplace and definitely the best way to shop beer, wine, and spirits online. Our mission is to be there when it matters, committed to life's moments and the people who create them. And we partner with retail stores in over 1,200 cities across North America to help bring Drizly coverage to more people every day. We have 3 consumer-facing platforms. So we have Drizly.com, our website, and an iOS and Android app. So as we talk about event data a little bit later on, we'll really be talking about the data that we collect across all 3 of our platforms here. And to orient everyone a little bit to what our data team looks like, we have data engineering, business intelligence, and data science, all under the analytics umbrella. And our team has been growing a lot over the past couple of months. So we have some open roles here in green, though some of these have actually been filled in the past couple of days. We're going to actually share a link to our career site just in case anybody is interested in looking into any of our open roles. So as our team has grown, we've really come to understand the need for investing in our data infrastructure. And it sometimes is something that's hard to prioritize and is often pushed aside for other organizational needs. But we really saw it as the only way to successfully grow our analytics team. So we really have been prioritizing it and investing in it over the past year. And as we started to think about the analytics stack that we wanted to build, these were a couple points that we kept in mind. We needed it to be automated so that analysts could make changes and not worry about deploys or infrastructure nuances. We wanted it to be simple so that new hires could ramp up quickly and would be able to understand our stack on day one. We needed our analysts and data consumers to feel confident in our data and in the tools that we use. And lastly, we needed it to be scalable so that as our team and our data size grew, we didn't have to worry about making any fundamental changes to our underlying infrastructure. So let's get into it. This is where we started. Going back to 2019, around May to June, our team was pretty small, around 2 to 3 on our BI team. this is around the time when I joined the team and when our director joined the team. And as we looked at the state that our data infrastructure was in at the time, we really knew that we needed to upgrade our tools to build the analytics team that all of us wanted to work on. So a couple downfalls here. There was no real version control. So we were using Domo as our BI tool, our data ingestion tool, and our BI visualization layer. So it was doing all of these things that it wasn't necessarily the best at doing. There were data sets in Domo that were like underscore do not use, underscore WIP. So it was not a great process to go in and figure out what things had been changed or what was accurate. So that was one of the first things we wanted to tackle. We had no automated deploys at this time. There was no real data testing going on anywhere. And logic was just scattered across our data stack. So we had a lot of one-off cron jobs in various places with no documentation, and it was hard to know what dependencies lived where. So that brings us to phase 1 around June of 2019. Our team had grown a little bit. By this time, we were up to around 4 on the BI team. And this is one of my favorite phases when we brought in DBT. So DBT really helped us move a lot of our data modeling outside of Domo. And I know DBT has been brought up a lot throughout the conference, but just in case anyone isn't familiar, DBT stands for Data Build Tool, and it's a command line tool. It enables analysts to really transform data in their warehouse much more effectively. And it pretty much takes code, compiles it to SQL, and runs it against our database. So it started to allow us as analysts to think and work much more like software engineers. And just from my experience, DBT is one of my favorite tools to work with, and it has such an amazing community to be a part of. So a lot of things improved just with adding DBT. Our logic could be centralized and much more sophisticated. We improved our development cycles with data modeling. We had a little bit safer deploys because we could just deploy our DBT project, but it was still manual at this time. And then we finally had some version control with our data models. And from here, I will pass it off to Dennis to talk about phase 2.
Hello. So yeah, phase 2 begins October of last year, which is when I joined the company. So like Emily said, she started the work around DBT. The next 2 tools we really wanted to bring into our stack were Snowflake and Fivetran. Both these are tools that I'd had some experience working with before, and Drizly had already started conversations with both before I started. So really when I joined, I could really just start building with them like pretty much my first week, which was nice. So at this point, we really just wanted to start building our ideal data stack. So we still had Redshift serving a lot of production needs, but in parallel, we just started our new Snowflake cluster and started bringing in all of our sources directly into Snowflake with Fivetran and Snowpipe. We didn't want to have we didn't want our BI tool ever to do ingestion. So we were just bringing that in to Snowflake. And with Snowflake, a big advantage of this was just that we could store data in a really unprocessed fashion. Before, we kind of had to apply some transformation upstream to make sense of our event data, which was JSON. And instead, we could just store it directly in Snowflake as semi-structured variants. And write just much more sophisticated queries that were just a lot easier to work with. So the other thing is that just with bringing Fivetran into our stack, we could just view ingestion as a solved problem. We didn't really have to scope out additional work if we needed to add another third-party source, and we could just move away from some of the custom-built full replication jobs that we'd built previously and move more towards like CDC and incrementals and not have to babysit as many existing jobs, which made our director of engineering very happy because he was responsible for the main application database into our warehouse. So yeah, so kind of what this allowed us to do is, like I said, write more sophisticated queries and just have all of our logic exist in one place in DBT. This really started to get us to the point where we could view our analytics platform like any other application and just have it be that one PR could contain all the logic we'd need, could be tested all in one place, and then just have automated deploys. So getting to the point where we don't have to worry about if we change logic, if that has side effects in other parts of the stack, we can just change it in one place and confidently push out a deploy. So that was kind of phase 2. So phase 3 is kind of, now that we've settled on our main tools of DBT for transformation, Snowflake for our warehouse, and Fivetran for ingestion, what you can see that's no longer in this diagram is just removing a lot of those peripheral cron jobs and tasks that just existed, but we weren't as confident in, and start to just funnel all of our processes through standard frameworks. Really, this was about just making our stack as easy for people to use as possible. And this was where we just, by having tools that did one thing well, we could just marry them together in a way that just complemented each other. So for Snowflake and DBT, what this meant was just taking advantage of things like zero-cost cloning and have our production runs, then also just clone that production database so every analyst has a personalized staging environment where they can make changes as if they were making changes directly against production, but be doing that in a safe way that it's only viewable to them until they're ready to push out that PR. So they can make changes, make sure all their data tests run, put out a PR, merge it, and then feel confident that the next time that our DBT transformation runs, their changes will be reflected. And the other thing this kind of just let us do is bring in more specialists into our data stack. We could have people who were subject area experts in marketing or partnerships, and they can be contributing to the analytics stack, but not have to know every single tool in our stack. They don't have to be as concerned with how data is flowing in, but just know that there's a way that they can supply their logic, and it will be deployed just as any other code change. So that really allowed us to really quickly grow our team a lot more. So another example of this is just around data sharing. Before all this, this is a good example of something where there was a lot of work that existed, but it was a lot of bespoke work that was just specific to each customer. So if a lot of external partners rely on our data, and pretty much every one of those partners had their own custom data feed of usually just dropping files in their SFTP. And these were just really slow to build out. They were really brittle. And there was just, every time it was pretty much starting from scratch. So using DBT and Snowflake, we could take advantage of Snowflake reader accounts. So Snowflake reader accounts are kind of just little mini versions of your Snowflake infrastructure that are read-only, but have access to a subset of your data. And then using that with DBT, we could keep all of our transformations in one place, and then just with effective tagging and post hooks, make data available to the partners that are interested in particular models. And we can do that safely, and we do it in a way that, since their data is just copies of our data, if we need to make a change, it's reflected in their reader accounts in real time. We don't have to like ever update or push changes. They're seeing what we're seeing like as soon as we transform the data. So after that, so we were building all this great stuff, and then unexpectedly COVID happened, and COVID had a very large impact on Drizly's business. I remember still the middle of March when our CEO sent us all home for 2 weeks. We're still in those 2 weeks currently. And really just between this very sudden spike in data and sustained new volume of data as the new normal, and just sending everyone home to be remote for the foreseeable future, there was just a real potential for this to go poorly on the analytics team. And we actually weathered this pretty well. So this is just looking at our Snowflake costs over time. There's a spike in September. That's when we were doing some backfilling for some new models. So that really wasn't as much COVID related, but looking at this, we pretty much were able to continue doing everything we needed at similar costs. No real bottlenecks in our infrastructure emerged during this time. We had one weekend where we had to reshard a Kinesis stream, but otherwise we upsized some warehouses, but the overall architecture held extremely well. And we were able to just keep going, keep deploying multiple times a day, keep having our transformations go out every morning, and also just be in a position where we could answer questions from the business that didn't exist before COVID. And there was just a lot of new work that needed to be done. And we were lucky that we didn't have to be spending the summer just rebuilding everything, since we invested so much in the previous months going into this. So besides the fact that I've been cutting my own hair for 6 months, it's been a fairly uneventful summer for analytics. I'm going to pass back to Emily, and she's going to talk about where our stack is currently.
Thank you, Dennis. So this is where we currently are, phase 4. We started this around June of this year. We started our transition to Looker as our main BI visualization layer. And I could talk for like a whole nother presentation about why we chose Looker and why it was the best choice for our data stack and why it fits in with all of our other tools and our vision for analytics so well. And I actually had a wonderful opportunity to be on a webinar with Looker and Fishtown Analytics a couple weeks ago to talk about that exact thing. So we're going to share a link to that if anyone's interested in just digging deeper on why we made that decision. But it's been going really well for us with Looker. We've also started transitioning to Dagster to do all of our data orchestration, especially for data science. So a lot of things have improved in the past couple of months since we've started transitioning to Looker and Dagster. So one thing is that analysts can really start focusing much more on data modeling and data curation. Especially with Looker and DBT, those are like the main tools that analysts can live in day to day. Our business users also really benefit from Looker and just have much more freedom and confidence to explore our data. This isn't shown here, but we started using census to help us integrate some of our transformed data back into some of our source systems. And with Dagster, we can really improve our orchestration and have easier coupling with data science. So this is what our current analytics stack looks like. We have Fivetran doing most of our third-party data ingestion. We have Snowflake as our warehouse, dbt doing all of our data transformation, and Looker as our reporting layer. And then, as I mentioned, we're using Census now to take some of our transformed data back into some of our third-party systems, such as Salesforce and Zendesk, which are a lot of our operations teams are living in day to day. So it really helps us to pull some of that data back into the tools that they're using. And thinking forward to the future of analytics at Drizly, we're really starting to focus on data science. So that team has mainly been one person, and by the end of this month, it will be up to 3 people. So we really need to focus on making sure that we're building our data science solutions to really be at the same level as we've built our BI solutions that we've gone through here today. As a team, we're also really starting to focus on data modeling, what our strategy is as a team, how we can most effectively model our data to answer the questions of Drizly, and making sure that as our team grows, we're really remaining consistent with that and following best practices. And then lastly, with Looker, we're going to have much more of an eye on data curation and making sure that as our business users are accessing Looker and using that data, that they feel comfortable and confident to use that data in their day-to-day decision making. So lastly, we will move on to questions, but I wanted to point out that we were able to create a special promo code for this event, MDSCon5, for $5 off your Drizly order. So hopefully everyone can enjoy a nice beverage at the end of the conference today. And I'll hand it back to Jason.
Perfect. Yeah, I was actually telling someone because they said that they just discovered Drizly in the chat, and I said, wait to the end to use it if you're gonna do your thing. So there you have it. I understand you're looking to grow your team. Would you tell us a little bit about the type of person you'd like to hire, and if you have any geographic preferences on where that person would be?
Sure. I think we're really looking for people who are constantly challenging themselves, constantly learning what's out there, what's changing in the analytics world. So we've constantly gone outside of Drizly to learn what other teams are doing right. And I think that's something we want to continue doing and continue as like a core part of the culture of our team. So
Great.
I know that's one of the big things we're really looking for.
Okay. Geographic preferences?
Currently, Drizly is open to all remote, all parts of the US.
Okay, US, got it. Cool, we have a bunch of questions that have come in. Do you enhance any data in your Snowflake, I can't talk, sorry. Do you enhance any data in your Snowflake platform from the data marketplace?
So not currently. We've done some POCs with different vendors that are on Snowflake Marketplace, and we've gone more with the API route for data enrichment, but as more companies make their data available, like as Snowflake shares, I think it's something we're going to be using a lot more going forward.
Okay. Do you always have to model your new clickstream event tables?
Yes, currently right now, if any sort of like new event is created by our engineering team, we have to model that from our raw clickstream data.
Okay. What prompted Drizly to move from Redshift to Snowflake?
I'll definitely take that one. I would say in part, one was just like the flexibility around it, just between like the division between storage and compute. You can do that somewhat more now with Redshift, but also ability to store semi-structured data, which again, you can kind of do easier now with AWS, but it's just very baked in Snowflake. And I've been kind of a Snowflake fanboy for a couple of years, and people on the analytics team will say like my first couple of weeks, I kind of didn't shut up about it. So we were kind of going that route.
That's awesome. Do you use Snowflake tables, views, or materialized views in your presentation data? And if so, how is query performance?
So we mostly use tables just because we have that transformation layer of DBT. So DBT is kind of computing a lot of our aggregations and things like that. So DBT is doing like the heavy lifting, and Looker is then just kind of querying those pre-aggregations. We have a couple views for things that are more real-time in the data feed. We haven't been using materialized views yet, just because there's some limitations around what all you can put in a Snowflake materialized view.
Okay. Why are you using Snowpipe for data ingestion along with Fivetran?
So Snowpipe is good for just data that already exists going into S3 that's append only, as opposed to like Fivetran. Really what the best thing about Fivetran is it kind of maintains state, and maintaining state is so difficult to do. So if you have something like your application database, you want to know what like a customer's current address looks like versus clickstream data where it's just a funnel of data that you're just continually adding to an existing table.
Okay. In Domo, do you store data from Snowflake?
We were until we started our transition to Looker. But yeah, we were for a while.
Okay. Do you have any resources, tips on how to model the clickstream event data in DBT?
I think our best tip maybe is to make the models like incremental, because it's just such a large amount of data. The incrementality of that DBT materialization just makes it much more efficient.
Oh, great, cool. We're out of questions. We're out of time. So thank you so much, Dennis and Emily. This has been fantastic. It's been nice to kind of roll our sleeves up and get really hands-on with your solution set, which is fantastic. Next up on our agenda is a 10-minute break. So go ahead and check out some of the sponsor pages, interact with them, get some files, ask some questions. And then right after that, we'll hear from Inhabit IQ. So to join that section, just close your screen here. And then in 10 minutes, join us for that session. And then, but before that, we wanted to share we wanted to share a quick video from one of our gold sponsors, which is Snowflake. Thanks for joining us.
Once upon a time, in a country known for its fine art and architecture, two boys were born, Benoit and Thierry.
You know, Thierry, I love data and I love computer science.
Me too.
Not only did Thierry and Benoit love big data, but they grew pretty fond of each other.
And I think you would call it a bromance.
Benoit was given the opportunity by an early investor to re-architect a data warehouse in the cloud entirely from scratch.
And I knew that there was no way I could build Snowflake on my own, so I needed Thierry, because together we have an amazing idea and he's the most optimistic guy I know.
They decided to quit their jobs, buy a printer, whiteboard, and start working out of Benoit's apartment in San Mateo.
So basically, we propose a brand new architecture for the cloud. It is an architecture which is designed to support fault isolation, performance isolation, and elasticity of the cloud.
So what we wanted to do is to build a system that would adapt, the resources that was used based on the demand, such that for customers they would only pay for what they use, and also so that the system would scale to infinity.
Yeah, what he says.
So that's the story of how two people with a shared passion for data built a cloud data platform from scratch that changed the world.
Or at least change how we store and analyze enormous amounts of data.